we go. Brilliant. Okay, hello everybody, welcome, thank you. It's a lovely small group because as usual I did very little in the way of marketing. Hey ho, I actually love it when it's small groups. But so what I'm going to do is, this is kind of a slightly different session to usual, but especially because you're a really small group, please just ask questions, ask whatever questions you like as we're going through. Oh, we've got some more people coming. Hang on a mo. Yeah, just ask whatever questions you like. You can put them in the chat. I'll keep my eye on that, or you can unmute yourself and ask me as well if you'd like to. I have made a handbook to accompany it, so that will have everything that I talk about, unless you ask me questions about anything extra, but I can always add those things in. So that will have everything that I talk about in it, and then I'll send you the recording as well so that you can do it at home again, or you can probably do it at the same time as me from home if you'd like to, because it's all relatively quick jobs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of basics of what to do, kind of general maintenance, and then I'm going to show you the quick service that I do with my machines, and tell you how regularly I do that. And then I thought it might be interesting for you to learn a little bit about tension and maybe a bit about needles as well. So I've included little bits about that. If there's anything else you want to ask, please just ask. Okay, so I've got a couple of machines next to me. I've got a front loader and a top loader. So hopefully we should be able to cover everybody off with their machines. So first things first, dust is your absolute enemy, dust and lint and things like that. So first off, always make sure that you put your dust cover, whether it's a hard cover or soft cover, straight back onto your sewing machine whenever you're not using it, because that will just stop it getting really, really dusty. And then I also actually have like a lint-free cloth that because it still gathers. This has been under a hard cover, and it's still got a layer of dust over it, even though it's got a hard cover on it. So I quite often just use a lint-free cloth to just wipe the outside of my machine down as well. The second thing, so this is the first thing that I always say if anybody's machine is a bit clunky, or it doesn't seem to be sewing straight, or it's got loopy stitches, or it's skipping stitches, is change your needle, because you should change it way more regularly than what most people change the needle. So the recommendation is every 8 hours of sewing. If I'm doing a really big project, I'll just change the needle afterwards. If not, I probably do it monthly, so depending on how often I'm using my machine. But yeah, so if you do a big project, then just change it, because that is it's usually the thing that you do, whether it's very slightly bent and you've not noticed, or it's slightly blunted on the end so it's not going through the fibers of the fabric properly. That's the first thing to do. I'll talk about actual needles at the end, because I'll keep about the maintenance stuff at the moment. The other thing, which is can really affect how your sewing machine is sewing, is to make sure you're using good quality thread. So if you use cheap threads, quite often you can tell with your sewing, your machine just won't like it. I've got some machines that just haven't behaved at all if I'm using a cheap thread. So yeah, I always use good quality threads, and the same thread type, top and bottom. So yeah, so if you have different threads top and bottom, then the rate at which they're pulled through the machine, the tensions might not be set up exactly right. So even though the tensions are set up to balance each other for the top and the bottom, if you've got different threads, they might pull through at a slightly different rate, and that can affect how your stitching looks. So again, that's really important and kind of a quick thing to rectify if you've got different threads or not such good quality threads on your machine. And then the other thing, which is really interesting, so as well as kind of just dusting before I go into the actual mini service, is so for the top tension, you've got some plates up here, which so the higher the tension number, the closer they are. So the the kind of the higher the tension, the harder it is for your thread to go through, and the lower the tension number, those plates kind of open out, so your thread will flow through much more freely. Your machine will just, if you do little things here and there, it will just like you more, all the more for it, and it will behave better. And one of those things is when you unthread, if you don't do this, by the way, it's fine, your machine will still be okay. I'm just trying to help with things that will, you know, stop getting lint caught in it and things like that. So the way that you thread your machine up and the way that the thread goes through the machine is this way. It's kind of right to left all the way down. And if so, usually you're kind of what your instinct to do when you're unthreading it is just to take the spool off the top and just pull your thread out. But actually, your machine will thank you if you just always put the thread through those plates in the same direction. So what I try and always remember to do is, instead of just pulling the thread out that way, is just snip it up here and pull the top thread this way when I'm unthreading it. And then that means that the threads will always go through those tension plates in the same direction, and it will just reduce the risk of lint getting caught up in those tension plates at the top. Okay, so there's some like kind of best practice habit things to get into as you're sewing. What I'm going to do now is any questions on that before I go on any further? All good. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you kind of the mini service that I do to my machine, like once a month probably, or after a bit. It takes like literally takes 10 minutes once you've got used to how it works with your machine. So it's a quick job, but it's slightly different on the top loader to the front loader machines. So I'm going to show you both. Yeah, I'll do both just in case anybody who wants the recording has got, you know, so I cover everything on. Okay, so always make sure that your machine is powered off when you do this. So just unplug the power cable just so that you don't accidentally hurt yourself. I'm going to change my camera now, and I'm going to do a close-up onto my actual machine so that you can see what's going on there. Whoop. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the top loader. I'm going to try and get it nice and close for you. Oh. Okay, is that bright enough? Do you know what? I could. How can I do that? Got another light here. Maybe this will work. Doesn't make much of a difference. Okay. Hopefully that's okay for everybody. Okay, so first thing to do. Oh no, I think I want to make it brighter for you. Okay, that's a bit better. Okay, great. First thing to do is take out your needle when you're doing the mini service. So with mine and with most people, there's a little screw up here, and take it out, and you'll want to dispose of that needle and put a new one in. Also take off the presser foot, because you know, you want to be able to get into all of this plate and everything under here. Let's take out the bobbin as well. So take the bobbin out, so we're all empty up here and ready to go. So the next thing that you need to do is remove this plate from the top of your machine. Now this machine, probably both of machines, aren't going to be too linty. I should have done loads of sewing today and got them really messy, so it was really impressive, but I didn't. So you should have a screwdriver that comes with your sewing machine. There's usually a couple of screws on the top, but it does differ actually. The other machine, the front loader that I'm going to show you, is a Benina, and it doesn't have screws on the top. So hopefully I'm covering off all the eventualities of what you're going to have with your sewing machine. But usually you'll see a couple of screws. So you just pop the screwdriver in, undo the screws on the top, like this. And after you've done it, if you've not done it before, after you've done it once, you will find it much easier. So this tiny little screw, make sure you keep that safe. There's two on this one, so I'm going to do that first one. And then this one over here is quite a lot more fiddly. Ooh. Sorry if my hand's in the way. Just need to wrestle in a little bit. There we go. I should be able to do it by hand. Okay, so I can feel the plate loosening now on the top. So you should just be able to lift that out from the top of your sewing machine like that. Oh, there is quite a bit of lint. Oh, you can't see it properly. Let me try and bring you over. Can see a bit. Oh yeah, you can see a bit of it. Do you know what? Let me just quickly try and change the angle of my light, because I think we can do better than this. And turn it up a bit. Hang on a mo. That better? I feel like that should be better. Not really. It's dark, isn't it? Okay, so we've got the bottom, we've got the plate here that we took off. So what you want to do is get the brush that came with your sewing machine. So you might read sometimes that you can use a little like kind of air blower thing. Don't use those, because what they can do is they can add condensation into your machine, and they can also blow the lint even further into your machine, which is the last thing you want to do. Oh, can you hear me?
Echo.
Oh, have you?
Since you changed your lighting.
Well, that's weird.
I'm not getting an echo.
I do see the switch. I'm very confused about.
No, I've got no echo either.
Has anybody other than Sally Louise White got an echo? Sally, do you want to go out and in again? I'll readmit you.
Yeah, just to get in. I'll give it a go.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I think it's Sally's showing here as twice.
Yeah.
So she may be logged in
Oh.
twice.
Oh, yeah, she is. Well, that's funny. Yeah, okay. Actually, if I tell you what I can do. Oh, that's my light falling over. What I want to do is just move my computer, because there. Here she comes. Right, here's Sally again. You in? We've just got one of her, but I'm going to keep going. Okay, so you've got the plate here. And yeah, what you need to do is use the little brush. So don't use those little air blowers, and just you'll see that the dust just kind of really like sticks to the brush. It's really brilliant, kind of like with static. So you can just brush all of the bits off and make sure that this is nice and clean and free of any lint, which is made up of all of the fibers from your threads and your fabric. So this is nice and clean now, good to go. Check all under there and all the nooks and crannies. And then you want to do exactly the same in your machine. Maybe that's better. Okay, that might be a little bit better. So there's actually quite a lot in here. So if I just put the brush in, you'll see, oh, there's nice big chunks here. Look at them. So you just need to make sure that you get all of those bits out. Try not to push them further in, but the brushes are usually nice and long, and you can just remove all of those bits of lint, take them out of your big chunk in there as well. So take all of those, look at that bit, that's a good one, bits out of your machine until everything is completely lint free. What I would usually do is kind of move it around so that I can see right in as well. You can really, you know, stick the brush right in. And then you can also, better like that, isn't it? Slightly better. God, is it or isn't it? The light is bright as it goes. You can also remove the bobbin case here. I've taken that bit out, you can see, and then again, just get your brush. If you want to, if you're unsure about how to put it back together again, you could take some little photographs of what it was like beforehand before you put it back in again, but just brush all the lint bits off this as well, again, so that it's nice and free of all the dust. And then again, exactly the same in here. There's quite a few bits in here actually, and there's even a few pieces of rogue thread in here. Can you see that piece of thread? So that was just sitting in there as well. So you want to brush. Oh, there's loads. This is very satisfying. It's a lovely job. I really like it. And you can tell the difference afterwards as well. It's really nice thing to be able to do. Right, okay, so that's that done. Then once you have cleaned all of those bits, I could go on for ages. I'm going to stop here. Once you've cleaned, it's time to oil your machine. You might find like this machine has got like a little kind of wick bit in there, like, so you might think that that little piece in there is lint. It's not. It's a little piece of kind of felt. So if I was to try and get that bit out, it doesn't come out. That's stuck in there. So that bit in the middle is a little kind of bit of felt that you can oil to help all of the moving parts keep moving nice and smoothly. So don't try and pull that bit out if you see that in there. Not all machines have that bit, so don't worry about it if it doesn't have it. So you can oil that bit right now. But the thing about oiling is, so only ever use sewing machine oil. Don't ever use any oil that's made for any other purpose. Oh, Sally, is it better now? Are you okay? Oh, good. So yeah, only ever use sewing machine oil. Don't ever use anything else. And all of the different places that you oil machines do vary slightly. So I would say double check your manual, Google the model of your machine online if you're unsure. But if you do have that wick in the center there, you can oil that and then pop this back in like that. Just sit it in until it's sitting in nice and solidly. And then you can just simply put the top plate back on again. So just slide it. Oh, it's better if it's tilted, isn't it? Let me try and tilt it for you. There we go. So we'll slide the plate back in again onto the feed dog, and then take the screws and just screw those back in. And you don't need to do them really, really super tight, but just do them so that there's no more, they're not loose. So. And once you've done that, just tighten them a little bit with my screwdriver. You can check for the other areas that you might need to oil your machine. I don't oil it every single time, actually. I take all of this lovely linty stuff out really regularly, but I don't oil it all of the time. But you may find, so on the top of your machine, down here on the plate, sometimes also in this area on the plastic casing, and sometimes also on the top. If you've got the brand new machines, a lot of them you don't need to oil, but if you see any holes which don't have a thread in them, so this hole here you won't be able to see, but that hole there does have a thread, whereas these two holes here don't have threads. So if your hole has a thread in it, that means that that is not meant for I'm going to be a really weird angle now. Okay, that means that hole is obviously a screw is to go in that one. That's not meant for oiling, but more than likely any other holes on the top of your machine or on that plate or to the side of the plate are going to be to put oil in. Okay, so that's how you do the top loader to clean all of the lint out. Let me show you now how to do the front loader, because it's a little bit different. Ooh. this old Bonina. I got this, well, it must be 20 years old. I bought it. Oh no, maybe not, maybe 15, but I bought it such a long time ago and it's so heavy, but I love it. So I still
Hey,
use
can I
it.
just ask you, how much oil would you actually use?
2 or 3 drops, literally droplets, not very much at all.
Right, so
No
if it was to
filtering.
go in one of the little holes, you'd be 2 or 3 droplets in each hole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
two to three, yeah, exactly, no more than that.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay.
Ask a
Thank
question.
you for asking. Right, I'm going to go back to the other camera and hopefully you can see it okay. Oh, it feels
Can
a
I
bit.
ask a question?
Yeah, please do.
Wait, the one where you said if there's a thread, so I've
Yeah.
got a hole that hasn't got a screw in and has got a thread. What's
Yeah.
that for then? Is that for attaching something?
Yeah, so it'll be for attachments. It will be for, oh golly, any number of things. But if it's got a thread in it, it will not be to put oil in.
No,
Yeah.
but it would be something that I haven't.
Something
got.
else. Yeah. Probably some kind, you might have oh golly, like you could get like those little seam allowance gauges that you can put onto the plate, all sorts of things like that. It could be anything like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Right, let me go back to the other camera. So let me do the front loading bit first of all. So with this one, again, take out your bobbin thread. You can just check that there's no lint or anything on your case, but then also in here, you want to check that there's no lint. So in these front loaders, usually it's slightly different on the Bonina, but it's the same mechanism. You will see 2 little black kind of arms on each side. You have to push them so that they go outwards rather than inwards. And then once that happens, you'll be able to pull forward this front bit here. And then you'll be able to take out this piece in here. And then that will, oh, this one is clean as a whistle. Oh, I must have done it recently. There's no lint whatsoever on this, but there we go. That's a nice example of what it should look like. But this piece here, and then you'll see inside again. I mean, there's, well, maybe I could just get a little tiny bit, but barely anything. There's maybe some little bits up there, but yeah, just have a little bit of a root around, see if you can get any lint out. And then you also want to take the plate off again as well. So that should be exactly the same as last time, but actually Boninas are slightly different in that there are no screws on the top here. So I'm going to take the needle out. I think this is a new needle anyway, so I'll keep that one safe to go back in. Take the foot off as well. And then on a Bonina, yeah, there's no screws, but there is this little kind of pressure point here. I find it quite tricky, but what you do is you push down on that pressure point, and then can you see the front comes up, and then you can just lift off the plate for that machine. It's, unless you've got a Bonina, it's unlikely that you've got that that mechanism. Otherwise it's much more likely to be screws, the same as what I showed you before. Oh, there are some bits down here that look low. So again, just pop your brush in, get any bits of lint out that you can see. It does just stick to it. It's great. Can you see? You can see quite well against that white background, can't you? Any bits in there. And you will, honestly, you'll find it just makes everything run a little bit more smoothly. Or if there's a slightly clunky sound, it should get rid of that. If you do all of these things, if you do them on a relatively regular basis, you can prolong the life of your machine by years and years and years. Okay, so once you're done, pop it back. So again, there's no oiling to be done in there, so I'll put that back straight back in. Oh, with these ones, you go, there's a bit of lint underneath there actually. It's easiest to go in the left first, hold it down on the left, and then just push down on the right. And then with the casing down here, you pop this back in so that the bottom left hand side is open. You'll see inside there, can you see there's this kind of bit round here? So you want to do the opposite side of that circle with this bit here. So just sit it back in. It should sit in quite neatly. Oh, it's a bit tricky at this angle. And then once it's in, you can push this. Oh, push this back up and click it in place. And if you've got those two little black arms here, you just push those back down. Okay, and then that is good to go again. Okay, so that's kind of the little mini service that I do really quite regularly, just because I really enjoy it. So as you can see, it's really quick, doesn't take very long at all, and you'll find that it really does make a big difference. What else have I got you? And then what I do after that is a test stitch, just to double check how it's stitching, and then hopefully you'll find that it's stitching really well. If it's not, maybe take everything off again, just have a little check around. I've had people who have even, it's not happened to me, but even have, you know, if like a needle breaks, the needle piece can even kind of drop down into your machine. So I've had people have to hook those out with like a long pair of tweezers before, stuff like that. So yeah, have a little bit of a play around. Okay. Any questions on any of that stuff before I start to talk? The only other things I wanted to talk about were needles a little bit, and then I just wanted to talk to you a bit about tension, because it feels like tension is a bit of a dark art that people are a bit scared of, and I thought that might be a bit quite helpful. But anything on the servicing from anybody? Is that okay? Cool. I would say get it professionally. So that's like a quick service. So if you just send it in to get it serviced at a like, you know, a service person, make sure that you've got a reputable one who knows your machine make, although they are, you know, some of them are quite similar. The Bernina ones I do feel quite different, and we do have a Bernina person near here, so I always send that one there. But I always send them for all of the machines that we use in all of the workshops for a proper service about once every 2 years. And if you imagine, they get used quite heavily, so depending on how much you use your machines, I would do that. I'd like supplement your regular service, mini services, with that as well, because they will open the machine up completely, and they'll do a lot more in the kind of, you know, the nitty-gritty bits that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do.
Kate, what would be the average sort of cost of a service, a proper one?
Golly, do you know what? I don't know. So we pay, because we have loads of machines, I pay, I think, about £12 a machine, which is very cheap. I think it's probably more like, I would imagine it's more like £40, perhaps even more than that. I don't know. We're very lucky. We have a lovely man in Bath who does all of them, and he has done for about 13 years. So
yeah, I suppose it's, even if it is more expensive than that, it's well worth it, just to make sure you keep your machine sort of in good condition anyway, rather than having to fork out for a new machine if you don't look after it, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. I think it's worth. So if people are buying new machines, in fact, somebody asked me last week, and I meant to write a little feature on it, because I replaced all of the machines very recently, like within the last year. I've still got quite a few of the old ones because I just get attached. And I've got a load of new ones as well. And so I've started writing like a little feature on the machines that I think are good to get at the moment. And I just think it's not, you know, you see all the machines in quite often they have them in John Lewis. They're like bright colours, and they're like not much. I think they used to be £99. I think they've gone up to like £149 now, maybe a bit less. But they just, I can't tell you the number of people who we saw bringing them back in, because the component parts aren't good quality. They just don't last. It's worth spending a bit of, like, you don't need to spend a fortune, but like say £200 minimum, I would say, on a sewing machine that's got metal parts on the inside as well. It's got no plastic parts, and then it will just last you so much longer. It's a false economy really not to get one of those cheap ones. Yeah, and honestly, doing that mini service, you wouldn't believe it, it just sounds so much smoother. So all those little funny clunky noises, or the loopy threads, or whatever it might be, hopefully should disappear.
I have to admit, I'm quite scared, because I've had, this is a confession, I had a little machine that I've had for years and years and years. I've never serviced, never opened it up, never done anything. And I think now I know how to do that. If I open that one up, I've probably got enough lint in there to stuff a toy.
God. I would love nothing more to open that machine up and have a good old like race around and get
I'm
all
scared
the
at the idea. I've bought another one since then, so this is why I'm doing this, to look after that one. But I've got to open
Yeah.
up that one now.
Well, do the first
It's going to be
practice
quite
go.
scary.
Yeah, do the first practice go on the other one. Because it'd be great. Oh, I'd love that. So it's really
I'll send it in the post to you. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, take a little snap and send me. It's funny.
Thank you.
Right, Brill. Okay, so needles wise, so you will have got needles with your machine. So like I said, it's really, it's the first thing I say, when did you last change the needle? And most people can't remember when they last changed the needle. And it really makes a massive difference. So you'll see these little numbers on machine needles. This one here is these ones say 70 to 100 on them. So they have two different numbers on them. They have like a low number, a high number and a low number usually. Yeah, this one does. So for example, down here, we've got different needles, but that one down there, for example, is 80-12. We've got two 80-12s in here. So the top number, the 80, is the European size, and the bottom number, the 12, is the American size. So you only really need to look at one of them. I usually look at the European size, obviously. And so an 80 is kind of, you get different types of needles. So for example, here are jeans needles, but universal needles are like the kind of the sew-all needles, the standard ones that you'd have in your machine to sew most different types of fabrics. But in terms of those numbers, the lighter the fabric, so yeah, the lighter it is, the lower the number. So if you've got a slightly lighter fabric, you'd want to use that 70, and you've got a slightly heavier fabric, you'd want to use that 100. So basically, the higher the number, the thicker the needle, the more robust it is, and the lower the number, the finer the needle, and therefore it's to use with much finer, lightweight fabrics. So it's really good just to have like universal needles. You can just buy packs of all like 80, all 80s if you wanted to. And that's kind of the general one, the go-to one that I would use. But if you are using a different type of fabric, it's say if you're trying to sew with denim, using a heavyweight jeans needle, you'll notice it's just so much easier, and your stitching is so much neater if you use a larger needle in your universal pack or a specific jeans needle. And then think that you get other needles which are actually completely different. So say if you want to sew with jersey, if you try and use a regular needle, which is pointed on the end, it's got a sharp point. If you try and stitch that with that on your machine through jersey fabric, it's going to sort of slice through those jersey threads and fibers on the stretch, and it will break them. Whereas what you want to use on jersey or stretch fabrics is a ballpoint needle, which, as it says on the can, hasn't got a pointed end, it's got a ball on the end. So what that does instead is it finds its path very quickly, like a straight path through the fibers. So it's not cutting through any of those fibers at all. And because the fibers on jersey fabric are so soft, they'll just kind of move out of the way so that the ballpoint needle can go all the way through. And then likewise, say if you're sewing with leather, a leather needle is actually it's a point, but it's kind of slightly in a slight V, so it will just kind of slice right through the leather much more easily, and you'll find you'll be able to sew really easily. So I don't know, if you want to do a little purse or a pocket or something like that, you'd always need to use a leather needle for leather. But so like I say, universal needles it's good to invest in a nice big packet so that you're more inclined to change it more regularly. And the like 80s are a really good middle of the road one. Or you can get that kind of mixed pack of universals, which goes from 70 to 100, and then you're kind of well covered. The only other thing to say on needles is when you're putting the needle into the machine, or you unscrew that little screw and you put the needle up, always make sure that you push the needle up as far as it can possibly go, because that's how it's meant to be in the machine. And if it's not pulled all the way up before you tighten the screw on the right hand side, again, your machine just might not be very happy and it might not perform in the way that it's supposed to perform. That's all needle stuff. Before I talk quickly about tension, any needly questions? Shall I carry on? Tension. Ugh. Now, I hate messing around with the tension on my machines, and I tend not to really. If I can avoid it, I just try and leave them as they are. But if you're using a really different type of fabric, or if your machine gets bashed, if you're moving it around, you might find that the tension goes off and you need to change it. So there's two you can change. Which machine should I show you on? I'll show you on. I'll show you on both actually. Okay, so there's the tension for the top threads, the spool threads to go through your machine. This one here. And there's also the tension for the bobbin thread to go through your machine at the bottom as well. So like I told you earlier, they're behind where sometimes one of my new brother machines has got a tension dial on the front, which you twist like this. And actually it's got little plates behind it that you can kind of see go further apart or closer together, where the thread goes through them as you dial that up or down on your machine. But generally speaking, you'll have a dial on top of the front of your machine that looks a little bit like this, that goes up or down. There's also usually, so this has got a red line there, which denotes where the tension kind of should be on your machine. On the other one, this is a bit more common. I'll show you on this one on the front. Can you see the numbers 4 and 5 there have both got boxes around them? So that means that the expected correct tension for this machine is going to be somewhere around those numbers that have got the boxes around them. And if you have to go outside of where those boxes are, it would be unlikely for you to have to go outside of where the numbers which are kind of highlighted or outlined or something are. So that will be on all of your machines indicated in some way, whether it's on numbers to the side, which are kind of bold or whatever. It will be in some way you'll see a couple of the numbers, 2 or 3 of the numbers highlighted in a way that's different to the others. So like I said, what you need to, so to change the tension on the top, you change this dial here. I'm not going to mess with it because it scares me to mess with it unless I've got a problem. I know I've got good tension on this one, so I'm just not going to mess around with it. But if I had a really, really fine fabric where I needed, you know, say if you just put some like netting or like tulle fabric through your machine, it would automatically just kind of be quite tight and gather it up just with a regular stitch. So to stop that from happening, if you've got a really fine fabric, you need to loosen the tension to make sure it doesn't gather it up when you're stitching it, and it just sews through and the fabric stays flat. So what you'd want to do with a really fine or flimsy fabric is lower the tension to a lower number so that those plates are further apart and the thread can flow through the plates behind here much more freely. And likewise, if you've got a really, really heavyweight fabric, you'd want to tighten the tension so that you've got it's tighter. So you'd raise the number, you'd make it a higher number on your tension dial, and then it would mean that the plates would go closer together. So it's dead easy to do the top one. For the bottom one, so also I'll just say at this point, so you may also occasionally say that your machine has been knocked and it's not a case of wanting to change the tension for a different fabric type, but you just notice you've done your service, you've got a nice new needle, you've done everything else properly, but you've still perhaps got a slightly loopy thread on the top or the bottom of your fabric. There's a way to check if your tension's really perfect, and that is if you put the same thread type but different colors. So quite contrasting colours, say like red and yellow or something. And if you have a nice light coloured fabric and you put a different, so that these are the same types of thread, it's good quality thread. They're going to go through the machine at the same rate. And I know it should be nice and even, but I put one colour on the top and one colour in the bobbin. And then what should happen is once you just do a line of straight stitching, and I'd probably make the stitch slightly longer than what you usually would, just so that you can see, is that you shouldn't really be able to say this is the red stitching on the top and the yellow stitching underneath. You shouldn't really be able to see in between each of those red stitches any little bits of yellow, and you shouldn't really be able to see in between the yellow stitches on the bottom any little bits of red. If it's a tiny bit, it's fine, but otherwise if you've got little loops and you can see it quite obviously, that means that you probably want to have a little bit of a play around with your tension. So you'll see then if you've got the loops on the top, it means that the bottom tension is too loose or the top tension is too tight. And if you've got the loops on the bottom, it's vice versa. So that will tell you which one's tight or loose and which one you need to have a play around with. I'd always start off with the top one and not fiddle around with the bottom one unless you really need to. But I'm going to show you how to fiddle around with the bottom one because it's quite good to know. Okay, so for the top loader, actually I'll show you the bottom loader first because that's the easier one. So for the bottom loader, you take out the bobbin case like this, and you'll notice on the side there's a little screw, and that screw is holding this plate down, which is what the thread goes through as it's being pulled through this bobbin case. So the tighter that screw, then the higher the tension and the harder it is for that thread to come through that case, and the looser that screw, the more easily the thread is going to go through this case. So I always remember righty tighty lefty loosey so that you can you know which way you've got to go. But it's quite obviously you don't want to start messing around with this screw too much because it's really hard to know where you've gone back to. You can tell I've never changed the tension on this one at all. But if I did need to change the tension on this bottom one, what I would do is I'd get like a Sharpie pen, which I don't have to hand, but that's okay, and I would mark the kind of north, south, east and west of my, just on the just outside on the gold. So I'd mark where the point that the north of my screw thread thingy is there now. I'd do a little black mark with a pen there, south, east and west on this gold bit here. And then I would also do a mark on the north point of that screw. And then it means as you turn that screw, I'd only ever turn it probably less than a quarter of that pie each time. But as you turn it, you know how far you've turned it and you know where to go back to where you started if you need to. And by having those pen marks on there, you're not going to affect it in any way. So that's how you change the bottom bobbin tension on a front loader. And then on a top loader, it's kind of similar. Oh, I'm going to have to, shouldn't have unscrewed it. Hang on a moment, just quickly unscrew the plate again. I didn't do that tightly, so it'll be a nice quick job. But basically, you know that piece, once I'd taken the plate off from the top loader that held the bobbin, so it's the bobbin case as well really for the top loader one, that also has a little screw on the side. Well, it should do. There we go. So again, there's a little screw there. This is the bobbin case from the top loading machine. I still need to have a good go at all the lint in here. I didn't do it half as well as I normally would. Oh golly, I can't leave it alone. So there's a little screw there as well. So do exactly the same. And again, in exactly the same way, the rate at which the bobbin thread is pulled through this bobbin holder on the top loader will be faster or slower depending on how righty tighty or lefty loosey that screw is. that's everything. That's everything I wanted to tell you that I thought would be useful. Is there anything else that anybody wants to ask whilst you've got me? For anyone? Bit of a different session. Oh, great timing though again. 1 minute over. That was good. Right, is there anything else? I mean, I'll send you the recording and I'll send you the handout, so you've got all of this noted down as well. So you can watch, but obviously if you come and stuck, you can always ask me questions. If you do all of that and you still find that your machine is not behaving very well, I'd send it in for a service. Okay.
Go back to needles just quickly. I'm making a top at the moment, and it's a sort of a batik material, but it's quite fine, quite slippery. And I put a new needle in to start the new project, but I'm hearing it as it goes through. I can hear the needle each time it goes through. Should I try a finer needle?
Definitely try a finer needle, no question. Yeah, definitely.
Right, okay.
I'm sure that you will notice a really big difference. Yeah.
It just seems unusual, actually hearing it, almost going like through a drum skin or something. So, right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that will be it. Yeah, I'd probably do the mini service as well, because the only other thing it might be is if there is a load of fluff and stuff underneath the plate caught up with the feed dogs and stuff, it might not be the sound of the needle going through your fabric, it might be the sound of stuff underneath. So probably have a little bit of a clean out as well, just in case. You never know that. I've even had bits of tiny little squares of triangles of fabric caught underneath the plate in the past, especially when it's machines that are used for workshops. You know, they get really quite well used by all sorts of different skill levels, and you might find it's something like that. So I'd just have a good little play with everything, give it a nice little clean.
It's my job for tomorrow.
It feels lovely. You know, like some people love washing their cars. I hate washing my car, but I really love servicing my sewing machine. It's funny, isn't it?
Can I just share
Right.
something that I was having trouble with my needle threader on my Janome, and I had a chap come in last week to look at it, and he sorted it out really quickly, so it's now working again, thankfully. But what he did say to me is that he used the American one. He said on needles less than 14, it has a real problem getting through. And he said the finer the needle, the more problems you're going to have getting the needle threader through. So it's just something that
through the needle threader. Yeah, definitely you will. To be honest, I cannot. I know that loads of people really love them. I hate those needle threaders. I find them really, it takes me longer, and I find them like they break and they just do my head in. I don't like them at all. I know that loads of people really like them, but I find I've had so many of them go wrong. So I never ever use them. So I'm not even the best person to advise on that at all. But it makes absolutely perfect sense that you've got a finer needle, then the eye is going to be much smaller and it'd be much harder to get it through. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I have any tips on. Just, yeah, make sure obviously slice it and whatever. Yeah. It is going to be trickier though, Lynn, threading with a finer needle, but you'll be all right.
Okay, I'll try that. Thank you.
Well, also the thread, make sure you've got nice, you might want to even use a finer thread actually, slightly finer thread than the thread that you're using. It depends, although batik is a cotton though, isn't it? But is it quite?
Yes, yeah, it is. But it's very fine and really slippery. I didn't realise until I cut it all out, and now sewing it, I'm thinking, oh, what am I doing?
Yeah, try all of those things first, and then maybe after that you might want to go to see if you can get a slightly finer thread. Again, you'd want to make sure that you obviously always use the same top and bottom, but that might help as well. I think the needle changing and having a bit of a clean will be a big difference.
That'll make a big difference. Thank you.
No worries. Any more? Right. Okay, so let me stop recording.